The Vietnam War and the push for US involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie. The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies. That is war by media. Let us ask ourselves, of the complicit media, which is the majority of the mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist?
That was Julian Assange at an anti-war rally in London back in 2010. And after that, many of the demonstrators, folks on the vigil line around the world during the music The Third Man by Anton Karas. I'm Randy Credico, live on the fly, Assange Countdown to Freedom. This is like, we've done over 100 now, 65 of those are on the website. That's AssangeCountdownToFreedom.com. And if you'd like to support this, we are in it for the long haul here, folks, until we get Julian out. We have a low-cost, high-yield operation. And on the other side of the U.S., I'm in L.A., is Kelly Lane. She's the engineer, and she edits. I pick out pictures, and she picks out pictures, and she has to do all of that difficult work on the computer. So then we got the website. It's low cost if you'd like to support us. Today we are going to focus on the upcoming journey of the brother and father of Julian Assange, which kicks off in Miami on June 4th and ends in DC in July. They will be in the US on this journey for their son, and home run for Julian, home run for Assange. We're going to have in just a minute, Nathan Fuller of the Courage Foundation is going to give us an update on Julian's legal situation and lay out the tour, how you can get involved in the tour. Got some great information. So just in a few seconds. And then after that, we're going to play our first interview with Julian Assange, which was way back in August, I think the 25th of 2016. I want you to listen to that, and the energy and the intelligence, how cogent and humorous Julian is. I don't know where he is right now because he's stuck in that prison for a couple of years, and then the embassy for 7 years, and it definitely had a toll on him. There's no question about it, as Nils Melzer has pointed out time and again. So we're going to play that after our interview with Nathan Fuller of the Courage Foundation. So stick around. We're going to play a little bit of music, and we'll come right back with Nathan.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. Gonna stand my ground, won't be turned around. And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down.
Okay, we are back. This is Randy Credico. This is Countdown to Freedom, Assange Countdown to Freedom. As I mentioned, we are being joined now by the Executive Director of the Courage Foundation, Nathan Fuller, who's been on the show many times, and he's doing a remarkable job, as the Courage Foundation have been in support of Julian Assange. Welcome, Nathan.
Hey, Randy. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know you have a lot of work. I thank you for taking some time out and discussing what's ahead, both for Julian and this great tour that his father and brother are making in the U.S. Just first, if you could just sketch out what's happening in Julian's legal battle.
Sure. So since January 4th, when the UK court ruled that he cannot be extradited, the case has remained with the US, which is appealing that decision. So we're now waiting for the UK High Court to decide whether they will hear an appeal in the case, and then if so, when that appeal date will be. So all the meanwhile, Julian Assange has remained unconvicted, but remained in prison in Belmarsh, the maximum security prison in London. He was denied bail, even though he was perfectly willing to do house arrest. And so he spent more than 2 years, approaching 2.5 years in prison without a conviction, waiting for this case to finally end. And while it's happening in the UK, it's up to the US to decide what happens at it. And the Biden administration could drop the case at any time.
Have you heard anything, reading the tea leaves, what the Biden administration may do going forward?
Yeah, so it's been interesting to see. The appeal of the case was started under the last days of the Trump administration, and then an appeal paperwork was filed as the presidential transition was underway. And so the Biden administration is continuing the appeal, but they've been really quiet about it officially, publicly. A coalition of 24 human rights and civil liberties and press freedom groups sent a letter to the Biden administration in February calling on them to drop the charges. But at that time, Merrick Garland hadn't been sworn into office as Attorney General. He was still being confirmed. And so it was felt kind of in a legal limbo. Now Merrick Garland is sworn in. The appeal is still continuing, but there hasn't been an official comment from the administration. Just recently, though, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, was asked by a New York Post reporter about the Assange case and whether they're continuing it, whether they're considering dropping the charges. And her only response was that they're going to have an independent judiciary. So unlike the last administration, there's going to be this independent judiciary and let Merrick Garland, as Attorney General, make that case himself. Merrick Garland has a decent First Amendment record, as he's been a federal judge for many years. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to think that he could look at the case and assess it on First Amendment grounds as a serious danger, as the ACLU, Amnesty, and Freedom of the Press Foundation have explained to the administration, and just see that these charges should be dropped. But we haven't heard anything from the Merrick Garland or the DOJ yet. We're just waiting to see what happens in London, or whether the US is going to drop the charges.
You know, I'm a bit cautiously optimistic because of one individual who's third in line at the Justice Department, Vanita Gupta, because she did work with the ACLU, and prior to that with the NAACP Legal and Defense Fund. In fact, I worked with her in the Tuya case for a couple of years. So I know her sensibilities, and I can't imagine that she wouldn't have some influence here, and she wouldn't want to see the First Amendment and the free press squashed under her watch. So I think that's one of the wild cards we should be looking at. So there's a lot of mobilizing going on right now internationally. People all over the world are coming out, whether it be in Auckland or Melbourne or Berlin. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening here. And coming up is this incredible tour that Julian's father, John, and brother Gabriel are making, beginning, I think, in a couple of days. Can you lay out that tour by the Shiptons?
Yeah, they have already toured Australia and they've toured the UK, and I think the fact that many Americans can kind of think of this case as something that's happening in the UK and something that's happening in Europe and abroad is doesn't have anything to do with us here. I think part of the what I'm hoping the effect of this tour will be is to remind Americans that it's the U.S. government, the Biden administration, that's in charge here. That they're the ones who could drop the charges at any moment. And he's only being held in the UK under the US request. So the Shiptons are, John and Gabriel Shipton, Julian's father and brother, are coming to the US and going to start a tour of the entire country, starting in Miami on June 6th. And they're going to go all down the East Coast. They're going to drive through the Midwest and hit several cities on the West Coast as well. And they're just going to talk about the case. They're going to meet with local politicians and journalists and lawyers and everyday citizens who support Julian or want to know more about the case, and just going to talk about the issues and then culminate in Washington, D.C. at the end of the month to call on the Biden administration and to say to members of Congress, look, we've been to your districts, we've been to your constituencies, and they support Assange. They want these charges dropped. They want to protect the First Amendment, and here it is, time for you to do something about it. So at assangedefense.org/tour is where we're keeping track of the tour. We have a list of cities and events, and there's more information on each event in each city there.
Could you say that website one more time?
Sure, it's assangedefense.org/tour. You can also find it at homerunforjulian.com. It redirects to that same page, and so that's where we're keeping track of the tour. There's cities from Miami, Burlington, Boston, New York, DC, and then all through the Midwest. So yeah, we're gonna keep track of events there with live streams. We're gonna have video of their events and their little video blogs throughout the tour, and there's going to be a lot of content to come there.
Like I said, you couldn't find two better emissaries, and of course. Across the pond, we have Stella Morris out there a lot. She's been a tremendous emissary for Julian, and they're driving. That is amazing. They're going to drive across the country. I saw them up in Woodstock back in January. They drove up there. So, I mean, these guys are into battle. They're amazing. The energy.
Pretty incredible what they're planning. They're going to hit something like 18 cities in, I don't know, under 4 weeks. It's going to be a lot, but they are absolutely committed.
Well, they must have unlimited miles on their rent-a-car deal. So that's, like I said, that is a lot of driving. And next Thursday the 10th, I'll be at that one. That's already sold out. And that is at the People's Forum on 37th Street, but you're not going to be able to get in at this point. But people can watch it. How do they watch next week's event at 6 p.m. on June 10th?
Absolutely. Yeah, for each event, we also have live stream information. So that's up at that assangedefense.org/tour. We have the live stream link for that New York event, and we'll add other events and their live stream links as we go. But that one's up there.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, you guys at the Courage Foundation, you've been at this for a long time. This looks like you have to spend a lot of time organizing. Organizing events are difficult, but when it gets to like 15, man, I don't know how you do it. That's juggling a lot of balls there.
Well, we've had a lot of help actually from activists around the country. There are different organizations that have been really willing to step up and help locally in their areas. Groups like UNAC and Code Pink and National Lawyers Guild. We're in touch with anti-war groups, press freedom groups. People are really willing to step up and help, and it's going to make it a much better tour than we could do on our own. So it's been really great to see the support already.
I think everybody realizes, Nathan, this is a critical case. I mean, the whole First Amendment and the concept of free press is at stake here. I think people are really beginning to hone in on that.
Well, and that it's not just an isolated issue. I mean, the First Amendment affects everybody and affects all of these different social justice, racial justice, journalistic movements. And so it affects everyone. And absolutely, if we can't if there's no right to publish, we're left in the dark about what our government's doing, and a lot of people do see that. I think you're right.
Yeah, it's really a shame. You and I were at the first half of the extradition hearing in Belmore's to watch him, Julian, in that glass bulletproof cage, basically not having access to his lawyers. I don't know about the second one. I hear it was just as bad, and so he's being treated like a war criminal, like
Well,
a mass
the second
murderer.
one we were only able to see remotely, and the people who were trying to get in, people like from Amnesty and Reporters Without Borders, have had so much trouble just getting in, just to observe these proceedings. So the whole thing has really been kept in the dark, and it's really frustrating and difficult to get that and basic information out.
All right. So the message here is more people have to get involved, both either as writers or commentators or activists or celebrities, and definitely on the street. The street, I think, vigils and mass mobilization is critical at this point in time. I know you'd concur with that.
Absolutely. They're going to be, and then we're going to see that on the tour coming up. There's going to be different rallies, panels, press conferences. I think people are going to come out and really support this as things are kind of opening up again after the coronavirus shutdowns. I think people are willing to come out more, and we're going to have several events outdoors where we can, and we'll definitely be careful and, as careful as we can be, and keeps distance and outside where we can. But I think we're going to see all different kind of events coming up.
All right. Well, in closing, give us all the information on how people can access Courage Foundation, beginning with Twitter.
Sure. Yeah. We're at Courage Found, and the Assange Defense Campaign is at Defense Assange. The website is assangedefense.org, and /tour for this tour information. It's called the Home Run for Julian Tour because they're Australian and want to bring Julian home. He's been locked up in prison for way too long, and arbitrary detention before that, and it's been a long time since he's been able to come home.
Well, keep up the good work. I'm optimistic. I think this is a tremendous undertaking, and I'll see you on Thursday the 10th.
See you there. Thanks, Randy.
Anything else you want to add before we go?
I think that's it. I think we covered it.
I think we covered it. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with a 2016 interview with Julian Assange. And he was at his best, and he's not able to do today. And this demonstrates what he can do, how clear, how humorous, and how incisive and intellectual this man is. And he's being suppressed right now. We are not hearing that. So we're going to take a quick break. There's a little bit of music called Humoresque by Dvorak, and we'll be right back with that interview. Thank you very much, Nathan.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
All right. Can you hear us now, Julian?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. These things happen here at WBI. We've been around independent radio. You've been on the station many times, mostly on Democracy Now!, and you were at the studio on 120 Wall Street like 20 years ago. Somebody told me 15, 20 years ago. So
it was about 6 or 7 years ago. It feels like 20.
Does it? It's 6 or 7 years ago. 120 Wall Street. Well, they've moved around since then. Now they're in Brooklyn on Atlantic Avenue. We wish you were in the room with us at this point. And I just want to thank you. So many people are listening. They know that you're on the phone. Now, I am not Mike Wallace. I'm not like one of those hardcore. I'm not an interrogator here. Some people are going to think this is an infomercial for WikiLeaks and for Julian Assange. But, this is a progressive radio station, and I must tell you that everybody here is thrilled that you're on, and we all consider you to be a hero, which you are, and we thank you. We thank you for the great work that you've done throughout your life on behalf of spreading information out there. You've been a beacon of truth. You've been a messenger of truth, and we apologize that our government has been hounding you for so long.
Well, I don't know what you can say about that, but I'm struck by this philosophical position of I am not Mike Wallace.
Well, I'm not Mike Wallace. Do you remember Mike Wallace?
Quite a thing for everyone but Mike Wallace to say.
Yes, but Mike Wallace would put you in. They're all interrogators. I'm watching you. Even a comedian who I started out with, Bill Maher. I wasn't comfortable watching you on that show with Bill Maher. I think he was a little tough on you.
Well, it was definitely good. I don't mind interrogations. Actually, I think there are times that type of approach is called for. For example, when you're dealing with very slimy politicians that are extremely skilled at dodging questions. But
right, no, I agree.
My experience, my rather limited experience, but experience at interviewing people. I think it's actually more interesting to kind of give them enough rope to kind of hear their arguments at what they feel is their best. And then you can contrast with someone else.
Right, I see. Yes, well, we'd like for you to be here at this station when you get out of London and have your own show here, and you can do that with politicians. Didn't you once you were going to run for office in Australia for Senate?
I did. I found something quite unusual, which is that in Australia, if you can submit a postal vote, then you are also entitled to run for election, provided you haven't been convicted of a serious crime, which I haven't. And there is some unusual, there's an old precedent of a governor in the UK running in the 1900s in Australia. So, we tried to do that. I didn't think there was much chance, but I thought we'd draw some attention.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I ran for Senate here against Chuck Schumer, who makes Hillary Clinton look like a progressive. I mean, he may be the next leader of the Senate, and I know he's no fan of yours, and I don't think...
I ran for the Senate as well. That was the Australian Senate.
Yeah, well, 2010, I ran against Schumer, and he had me thrown off the ballot. But, I was doing it as performance art. Were you doing it as performance art, or were you... seriously trying
not as performance art, a bit too, because during election period, as you get closer to the election, all the other issues close over, and it's just what the two major parties are talking about. So in order to kind of
that's what I meant, though. I mean, you're basically trying to shine some light on the two-party system. You didn't run as in one of the two major parties. You ran as an independent, is that it?
We ran with the WikiLeaks party.
Yeah,
we created a party basically just because on the voting forms, if it's a party, you appear high up in the voting form. If it's individual, you don't. You're kind of like buried among 67 others.
And did you didn't hit the road campaigning with posters and bunting and all of that?
There was a team of people in Australia of volunteers, and I got about 150,000 votes in the state that I was in.
That's amazing. I got 29,000 in New York State, so you did a lot better than I did. But I ran against Governor Cuomo in 2014. But I was totally hammered by the press if they did any coverage at all. New York Times didn't do a thing on me in 2014. They basically helped out Andrew Cuomo, as they have with Hillary Clinton, as they have with Chuck Schumer. And sitting in that room there, looking at this election in the United States, what is your overview of this election in the United States? If I may just get away from...
Well, in some ways it's super interesting. In other ways it's fairly boring. You've got two candidates deeply disliked by both the population, by both groups of population. Hillary Clinton, who's kind of a predictable, boring, liberal war hawk. Although I think probably now you have to question whether she's a liberal war hawk because she's brought all the neocons onto her side as well.
She's close to Henry Kissinger, you know.
Well, it's much worse than that. She's like Robert Kagan, and who's the wife of Victoria Nuland, who was one of her best buddies at the State Department, who was behind a lot of the problems with Ukraine, has piled up with her, has made fundraising dinners for her. William Crystal,
right,
has also
endorsed
called
her.
Everyone to vote for, endorsed her, vote for Hillary. There's about 30 now. Basically, nearly all the neocons that were behind the Iraq War have now backed Hillary.
So
that tells you something very interesting. It tells you something about Hillary Clinton, but it also tells you something about Donald Trump, and it tells you something about the neocons. So the neocons' sense of identity and their interests are not strongly co-aligned with the Republican Party.
Right.
So they don't view, because I've believed naively that the neocons were deeply Republican, and why, if their interests differed to the candidate Donald Trump for whatever reasons, they might not aggressively push him. That's very different to crossing the floor and, if you like, backing the enemy as far as the Republicans are concerned. So all along, the neocons were not really Republican. They were something else, and they had a different agenda.
You think that if she wins, she's going to continue the warmongering policies that have basically been going on for about the last 40 years. She's...
Unfortunately, I think she'll accelerate it. There'll be a moderately significant uptick compared to her under the Obama administration. But remember, this period from 2009-2012 of Hillary Clinton being Secretary of State in the Obama administration produced a lot of conflict. Hillary Clinton got out at the end, and so John Kerry had to deal with it. But if you look at the successes by John Kerry, diplomatic successes, at his term in office compared to Hillary Clinton's, there's a world of difference. Now, to be fair to her, you could say some of the reason for this is that Obama's trying to move into his legacy phase, and after having, satisfied, broadly speaking, the military-industrial complex in the United States and a bunch of other powerful actors, he's now moving into a position to shore up his historical reputation after he leaves office. So John Kerry might have been given a little more rein than Hillary Clinton was. But yeah, there's significant diplomatic successes under John Kerry in terms of peacemaking, deal-making, reduction of tension. But Hillary Clinton's time in office saw the opposite.
Right. So you think going forward, it's going to be continued, even though she's in a weak...
That's just analysis on results in office. But there's a lot of other indicators, what she has said in her emails, the types of people that she chooses to associate, the types of people who endorse her, her positions on legislation and on war, but her being the leading... her not only being the leading voice in the administration to bring about the bombing of Libya and the destruction of the Libyan state, but being towards the end of 2011 so proud of that effort that inside the State Department she produced, or had her staff produce, what we call a Libya brag sheet. It's all and what they call a TikTok. It's the chronological description of how she was the central figure in bringing about the destruction of the Libyan state.
I'm trying to think of, is there anything that she did that was good during her tenure as Secretary of State? I can't think of anything. What about
I'm
Honduras?
sure there must be something. It's politicians sell themselves, and the State Department sells itself. So there's already an oversupply of an institution bringing out her good points. So of course, investigative journalists concentrate on the negatives.
I've been
none come to mind. I'm sure there must be some.
Well, I can't think of any. I've written articles about her. She was running for Senate here in 2000, and now she pushed herself as this big progressive when it comes to civil rights, Black Lives Matter. She lives just a mile away from 2 prisons, female prisons, Bedford Hills and Taconic prisons. She never once dropped by, not one time did she drop by to say hello to the prisoners, and they're 94% Black and Latino in both of those prisons, maximum security prisons, just a mile away. And so I get heat. I get a lot of heat that by attacking Hillary, which I do here whenever I have a chance at this radio station. I get a lot of heat that I'm actually helping out Donald Trump by attacking Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is the Democratic Party's problem, that they chose a very weak candidate with a real sordid background. You are getting a lot of heat. People are saying, well, Julian's basically going to help Donald Trump. Is there really a difference between these two?
Yes, there are differences between them.
In your mind?
There are significant differences between them as individuals. I think as it speak in both directions. The issue, I think, is more the Republican Party and look, individual presidents, once they are in office and are established, don't really do much. Most of their time, they are just taking the briefing sheets that are given to them, reading them to teleprompters, the briefing sheets that they're given for meetings, or then sometimes they are given 2 or 3 alternatives by the secretaries and members of cabinet and asked to choose between them. So, it's not like the alternatives that are presented to them are diametrically opposed. So that they're alternatives plucked from a very narrow pond. And where are they produced from? Well, they're produced from the major U.S. corporations and their ability to inject proposals to go into governmental decision-making and lobby for particular ones to be selected, and from the bureaucracies, the CIA, Department of Homeland Security, the Army, Pentagon, Veterans Affairs, etc. There's just one point where the candidate really does make a difference, and that is in the appointment phase. So there's about 3,500 positions that are appointed in the few months of the government coming into office. And so Hillary Clinton will select certain cronies, people she owes favor, etc. And those people will be appointed to various positions, and they in turn will recommend to her other appointments. And similarly, with Donald Trump, he will be appointing a whole bunch of people that come out of, his real estate network, people he's met in the entertainment industry, new friends that he's made during this campaign. And where there are gaps in his own personal network of trust, he will be feeding from what the Republican Party offers him.
Do you think he's really trying to win, or do you think he's tanking it?
I think it's a very interesting question, whether it was a serious campaign in the beginning, whether there are allegations. I don't have any evidence. It's amusing to speculate whether Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, who allegedly spoke to him about whether he should run, given that they have a close association in the past, that the Clintons might have thought it would be helpful to have Donald Trump in there. I think it is clear now, given the amount of effort that he's putting into things, the amount of time that it's consuming, that he's either was genuinely always intending to run as far as possible, or he has become trapped into it.
Right. Well, I'm not like a big conspiracy person, but I got to tell you, here it feels like watching this that he's part of the team, because he's about the only person that she could possibly beat with her record.
Yeah, you know? I mean, I think that's pretty true. Although amongst those 17 Republican candidates, there was a lot of chaff. There are also some
maybe
rather poor candidates. Not in terms of saying so much the very inflammatory, divisive things that Trump says that alienates whole groups of the population.
I mean, some of the people around him, Rudy Giuliani, this guy, Chris Christie, this sheriff from Arizona, this nutcase racist sheriff, Arpaio. It's very difficult to like him, you know. But there are other candidates. There's Gary Johnson and there's Jill Stein. Jill Stein called you a hero. What do you think about her campaign?
Well, I think she's clearly a brave woman, and the Greens have raised this election by, you know, sticking up for WikiLeaks and its right to publish and its imprisoned sources and so on. That's, I mean, obviously, we hear that as something that's important. It's actually a really good signal that is possible in the U.S. political debate. I mean, of course, whether it's possible for someone like Jill Stein to be elected is another matter.
Well, it's almost impossible for her to be elected.
But she has said these things, and there is some reportage. It's not been smashed in everyone's face like the Trump and Clinton campaign coverage, but there is a little bit.
One of Trump's supporters, Roger Stone, who I know. I actually know Roger Stone. He was on this show. You know, go figure. Couple of weeks back, but he bandied your name. But then, of course, he backtracked and said he didn't know. He didn't have any communication with you. But you know, he does toss things around.
Roger Stone is a rather canny spin master, and we have not had any communication with him whatsoever.
Yes,
I do imagine his position. He wants to. I mean, he has said nice things about us. I think he said that I was a hero, so okay, that's nice. We appreciate that kind of thing. So I'm not minded to criticize him too much for doing something that any kind of political operative would do, which is basically to try and get in on get in on our publications in some way by suggesting that he had something to do with it. But actually, no, it's all our hard work and the hard work of our sources.
Right, and you are doing a
Republicans have not helped at all. If they want to donate money like anyone else,
yes,
then
that's
they
a
can
thing.
do that. We'd welcome that.
Well, before
if they want to give us accurate documents, which we will check, of course, on the Clinton campaign, we'd welcome that. And similarly, we'd welcome it from the Clintons or Stein or whoever.
Maybe you'll get some money from the CGI, the Clinton Global Initiative. Have you?
Yeah, I doubt
it. Now, let me say, while we're there, people who want to, we're talking to Julian Assange at WikiLeaks in the Ecuadorian Embassy in London. It's 11 o'clock there. Is it 10 o'clock, 10:30?
It's very hot. It's the hottest August in London ever.
It's the hottest. What do we have Celsius?
And there's
33?
no air conditioning in the embassy.
You have no air conditioning? I got to tell you look great. I see you on television with Jake Tapper the other day. How do you maintain your energy and your health? I mean, you work out of the embassy?
Well, I have an exercise regime. You have to do these types of things, but I'm in love with understanding the world and sharing that understanding with other people. It's a bit hard to describe how much I'm in love with that. And have been for many years. And then at the same time, when you're in a conflict, when people are trying to, malign your work or engaging banking blockades, or as they are doing, attempting to send me and other people to prison, it's very stimulating. And so you feel energetic under these circumstances. I mean, when you've been attacked.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure it must be an impossible situation day in and day out. But you've done an incredible job. You're, just a remarkable example of strength and hope. And I know you're taking a huge sacrifice. When you got into this business, you knew it was possible that something like this would happen eventually. Am I right?
Sure. I actually expected it, not exactly this, but something close to this. A couple of years earlier, actually, I thought it would happen.
Well, here I just saw the UN has formally found, I think it was actually in February, that you were unlawfully detained by Sweden and the UK. Can you expand on that?
Yes, on February 5, the United Nations formally found that I am being illegally detained by Sweden and the UK and must be immediately released and compensated. So that's obviously a hugely significant win for us. The UK and Sweden so far have actively defied that ruling. They have paid some diplomatic consequences for it. Hopefully those consequences will increase over time. We have various legal mechanisms that we've tried to put in place, that we are putting in place to try and enforce those decisions. And you can go to justiceforassange.com with a numeral 4 in the middle, justiceforassange.com.
Justiceforassange.com.
And you can see the UN.
I see it right here. So I'm there right now. So so people can go there. How do people help out with the legal bills? Is there a...
If you go to justiceforassange.com, there's a donate thing on the right-hand side, and that goes to our general staff defense fund, which to protect me and to protect the rest of our staff.
And so that's one way.
It is quite expensive. I mean,
I know it is.
We have 154 lawyers that are either on our legal team as staff or have advised. The majority advised at some stage during those last few years. All of them are working either pro bono or at highly reduced rates, or some just for costs. But nonetheless, that's a big team.
The big blow was the loss of Michael Ratner. I know that was a huge blow.
Enormous blow for us in the United States. He was our chief counsel. It was a blow to a number of other groups who are using him. But the primary case he was spending his time on the last couple of years were our various legal cases.
He worked very hard on that case, and I know people associated with him who still are. So that's one way people can donate. They go to justiceforassange.com. And is there any other way people can?
Yes, they can go to wikileaks.org, and you'll see a donate thing there. We're tax deductible in the United States and also in Europe. I was just joking with one of my lawyers who was visiting yesterday that this is absurd, like Biden calling me a high-tech terrorist and all these calls out for my assassination, and yes, high-tech terrorist, assassinate him illegally, shoot the son of a bitch. Which is what Bob Beckel, this Democratic...
Bob Beckel said that?
On sex. Bob Beckel. Let me quote you too exactly. Bob Beckel said,
he broken every law of the United States.
He ought to be assassinated. I'm not for the death penalty.
If I'm not for the death penalty, I only want to do it. Illegally shoot the son of a...
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Tell me about Beckel. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Bob Beckel said,
it's a windbag.
Democratic strategist, I'm not... he should be assassinated. Assange should be assassinated. And I'm not for the death penalty. So if I'm not for the death penalty, there's only one way to do it: illegally shoot the son of a bitch.
That's what Bob Beckel
said.
That's Bob Beckel. Yeah, I'm embarrassed.
That's what Bob Beckel said. So anyway, we joke WikiLeaks, high-tech terrorist publishing organization that is tax deductible in the United States and Europe.
Well, it's my favorite.
Somehow it doesn't work, right? It doesn't. You can't have tax deductible in the United States and Europe and somehow be high-tech terrorist.
You're on his terror list. You're basically on the hit list by Bob Beckel. Look, I know the guy. I worked at a comedy club in the upper. I forgot who it was for, but he was in the audience, and he came up to me completely whacked out on 9 shots of tequila, and he gave me a beat. He said, "You were great," and that was the only time I ever had any any association with Bob Backlund. Look, I can't stand CNN. Jake Tapper, I thought, was rude to you. I know that Megyn Kelly, you'll be on today with Megyn Kelly on Fox. You were on last night. Part 2 is tonight.
Yeah.
Megyn Kelly. And how did that go?
Well, Tapper, I didn't think was so. Tapper, I didn't think was so rude. Actually, I thought he was relatively.
Well, I'm prejudiced.
Polite, but I say relatively. You have to understand that these guys are in the mainstream media, and so, just in order to justify how they behave, they have to make certain nasty questions. But you can often read whether they're enthusiastically into the attack or whether they feel they just have to go through some of the motions because that's what is expected of them. So for Jake Tapper and for the Fox woman, Megyn Kelly, they were not, their heart was not in the attack. I'll tell you whose heart was in it, Chuck Todd.
Oh, the worst. Chuck Todd. I call him Chuck Fraud. Chuck Fraud is the worst. Of course, he doesn't like you because of that leak and the DNC.
Well, we revealed in DNC emails that he was being called up by Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her crew, and what the hell's going on? They're speaking about Sanders in a particular way, and shut that down.
Well, thank God she's gone, and I wish I would make the trade. I wish he were gone and Wasserman Schultz was still there. I'd prefer to get rid of him because he's a horror show at MSNBC, at NBC, and he's not really a journalist. Jeremy Scahill called him out on the Mars show like 4 or 5 years ago. The guy freaked out. Chuck Todd.
Well, he's close to the Clintons, and you see how Meet the Press works.
Supported by Boeing. Boeing underwrites that show.
It's a Sunday show, so they sort of set up what the White House wants the discussion to be in the first part of the week.
I think it's all of MSNBC. I think that they should just
Most
move.
of it, yes.
They should just move right into the White House.
Right. I mean, it's an interesting question whether MSNBC is effectively, socially, and in terms of its structure and proprietors and so on, a White House outfit, or whether it is a center of power of the Democratic Party outfit. I think that's quite an interesting question. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Have you been interviewed by Chris Hayes?
I think I might have been once years ago, but he's been, on Twitter at least, he's been slandering us constantly.
He's been slandering you. He's amazing. It was, and I thought the guy did a pretty good job. Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann was okay. They got rid of him, because he was too far out there. And they bring in Rachel Maddow, and they bring in Chris Hayes, and they've both become attack dogs for the administration.
Yeah, he has Chris Hayes. There's also a middle-aged black woman. I can't recall her name.
Joy Reid?
Joy Reid,
right.
Yeah, and she has been particularly bad.
Well, it's we call MSNBC. They, if you ever watch them around the clock, you will see half of the programming there is a show called Lockup. Lockup. It's all about this sick, disgusting, rancid, voyeuristic display of prisoners in one of our.
Is it? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, Lockup. And I asked one of the guys, Howard Feynman, at the New Hampshire primary. I was there, and I asked Feynman. I said, "How on earth could you be on a show that's underwritten?" Because he said, "Well, it's cheap. It doesn't cost much money, and with the money that they make, it helps pay for Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow." That's what he said. That was the answer. You got to check out Lockup. On MSNBC. Just look it up online. Lockup. It's their flagship show because everything else loses money. Remember, she does not have a big audience. 300,000 people watch MSNBC. Maddow, but 330 million Americans don't watch her. So we shouldn't take them too seriously.
I think they're not really using it to influence. They're using it to influence influencers, right? I mean, that's the point, to help help get out stories in particular angles, like with Chuck Todd, to kind of set the narrative drum for the week, or to present a defense.
Well, I'm sorry to see
or
that.
to present an attack that will then picked up and spread. Because I mean, if you look at the numbers are not. Well, it seems to me on the back of the envelope analysis, the numbers are not enough to justify the payment.
Absolutely, it really is not. The numbers are very low, and CNN is okay. How has Wolf Blitzer treated you? Have you been on with Wolf Blitzer?
I think I might have. I don't think so, actually. He definitely has covered our material. I recall distinctly when we released Collateral Murder, which was about a 30-minute tape of Apache gun camera footage. The first time such footage in high resolution was released, showing an Apache helicopter mowing down 18 people in the suburb New Baghdad, including 2 Reuters journalists. And Wolf Blitzer, he's even though this was a journalistic effort by us, which in some sense was made for TV because there was very dramatic visual images. He made sure to spin it and only take one segment, which wasn't as bad as the majority segment. But I mean, he's kind of, if you look at Wolf Blitzer's connections to Clinton and the sort of things that angles he tries to push, I mean, it's not a surprise thing. I think most people in the media industry understand that Wolf Blitzer is quite a partisan figure.
Takes him a long time to say anything. Ever notice that about Wolf Blitzer? Takes him about 2 weeks to, get out a one-sentence question. Wolf Blitzer take a lot of time. He could do 1 2-hour show with one sentence. Wolf Blitzer, but
I mean, it's a shitty job. So I mean,
we're gonna have to. It's okay. We don't care. It's all right. We're talking with Julian Assange, the most wanted person by Bob Beckel. Bob Beckel, what a great guy with the suspenders. What a joke he is. And, so we don't have. I mean, look.
He's not the only one. I mean, there's been quite a lot of those.
You think Bill Clinton's happy?
Bill O'Reilly to.
What about O'Reilly?
O'Reilly said I should be assassinated by a drone, and then Mike Grunwald at Time magazine, not so long ago, actually said he couldn't wait to write the defense of the Obama administration for killing me with a drone.
Wow.
He's a kind of Obama hagiographer. He's now moved to Politico. It's not just me. They've also gone for our other staff, me as an organization, and of course some of our sources they've said should be executed. It's, what I find a bit disturbing. You think journalists, whatever their associations are, everyone has associations and friends that they make on the job or whoever they interview. You think that at their core, their number one self-interest is being able to practice journalism.
Right.
Yeah? So you think, okay, maybe they're a bit compromised around the edges, but in the end, they need an audience to listen to them, and they have to be able to say things. So you think that would be their core interest. Unfortunately, it's not true. Actually, they defer to these other interests. They defer what you would assume with their core interests, the ability of journalists to speak freely, to not encourage assassination campaigns against publishers and so on. They easily sweep that aside in order to pander to the interests in the Democratic establishment or Republican establishment or in the arms complex, in banking establishments, etc.
I think of, when I think of you, I think of, in this country, going back to the 1840s, Elijah Lovejoy. You know who Elijah Lovejoy was, the abolitionist?
No, I don't.
Well, you should look him up, because that was you. In 1840, he was telling the truth. Way back, 1840, Elijah Lovejoy, he was in Missouri, which was part of the Missouri Compromise. He was anti-slavery, and ruffians came in, and they shut him down. He set up shop again, and they said, enough of this noise, and they killed him, threw him in the Missouri River, and destroyed his printing press. And his brother went on, Owen Lovejoy, to be one of the leaders in the House of Representatives that supported Abe Lincoln. But Elijah Lovejoy, that's you. You're under siege there, Julian Assange. You're a courageous man, and I hope that we can get you back on this show. You have an open invitation to be on this show and other shows. We here at WBAI are huge fans of Julian Assange. I can tell you that, and we got you back here. I can tell you. Okay, great. I'll be very happy to be back on. Once again, just give people want to donate. They go to Julian Justice for Assange.com, or they can go to Wikileaks, or they can go to Wikileaks, and that goes to the publisher. Gee, I got to tell you something. I could have you on for 4 or 5 hours. I really appreciate you being on this show, and we'll be in touch. And anytime, Julian Assange. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever.